Welcome to part two. We're just waiting for Julian to pop in. Yeah, got that Maxi, innit? Pompous Julian.
Pompous Julian McGowan of money, apparently, allegedly.
I had somebody saying John Fury's the real deal, pipe down, and then somebody piped up, John Fury's a meal deal. Social media, the perils of it.
Listen, I'd rather have my email inbox than yours any day of the week.
Yeah, can I just give a big shout out to Tom Aspinall? Well done last night, Tom. Well done after your bad injury. Good man. Right. Russia. It's all gone quiet, but they're all being a bit cagey, aren't they?
Well, you and I, we're not conspiracy theorists as such, are we? But
I am.
well, you are more than me. I don't doubt the moon landing and all that kind of stuff, but listen, and I'm not part of the flat earth brigade. However,
you and I not about the flat earth or the moon landings. Let's ice crash because Frotcher's well rehearsed on all that, you know.
Is it?
Yeah, he's into all that.
Oh, I didn't know that, mate. Okay,
you got educated. He said, I agree with him. You know, what we're being fed on mainstream media is a load of crap, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, you've got to have an open mind with certain things. But, you know, I once got into a debate, and this, God, I don't really want to bring this up because it might open a can of worms on your channel, but I once got into a debate with somebody who said, not that it was an inside job, they said 9/11 never happened. He says he just never truly believed that 9/11 never happened. And it was like, in spite of what we all saw live, and in spite of like tens of thousands of eyewitnesses and 3,500 people dying and two towers no longer being there, I once got into this debate with someone who said 9/11 never happened. It was all staged. And it was at that point I just thought, I don't know if I should be on social media. You know, I came off Facebook and stuff. And there's certain things I think are questionable. Of course, I don't believe everything that I hear about or what I watch on TV, but there are some things historically that did happen, and I don't think there's much doubt about that. And I always wonder I don't know, that some of these crazy conspiracy theorists, I buy less that, you know, I think more things did happen than not happen, but of course there are reasons behind them, and someone will probably put in the comments about 9/11 being an inside job. And have you seen, you know, Fahrenheit, the documentary? I get that, but to say something like that never happened is insane.
Yeah, I had one earlier on comment section telling me Carl Froch were a good solid pro. Geezer from Was that you, Joe Calzaghe?
Carl Froch, it's like saying Carl Froch had a decent chin, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what I mean? You've got a theory on this Benn thing, haven't you?
I've got a theory, and I'm not saying it's the gospel, right? Now, I was gonna, you know, you've heard me talk about Benn more than anything because it's gone quiet. Now, earlier on in the year, you know, they were talking about definitely going to be out in March. Eddie said, we're looking at June, but it's likely Conor Benn's going to be out in March. And they were naming all these opponents, and then these opponents got other fights like Eubank Jr., Liam Smith, etc. And then we were told June, absolutely June the 3rd is going to happen. No doubt about June the 3rd. Conor Benn will be out, licensed or not. And then things happened with the Boxing Board of Control. Then we were told June the 17th because of Saudis wanted it on the 17th because they've got a location, a venue, etc. And he's going to fight. He was going to fight Manny Pacquiao, or he's going to fight Eubank Jr. And then the 17th didn't happen, and now we're told September. Now, there's been a load of things gone on. Now, we know UCAD have had the findings now. They've had this 270-page document, which even reading between the lines, if you listen to Conor Benn and Conor Benn's new team, they're almost saying that 270-page document is not worth the paper it's written on. So that's gone away. And then we've got this situation now. We've got this new team, and they've split the defence. But irrespective of that, we were told again that it's going to be Conor Benn and very likely, Eubank Jr. Now, Eubank Jr.'s gone his way. He's fighting, of course, Liam Smith. And then they started floating again Manny Pacquiao. Now, Manny Pacquiao, there's talks about him having this exhibition with Amir Khan. There's a good chance that will happen. All right, we know all the background. UCAD, we were told we're going to release the findings last week. Now then, so I'm not going to do a conspiracy theory, but last night or the night before, there was a Frank Smith interview online. I tend not to watch this stuff, as you know, but I thought, I'm going to watch it because it had a headline about Conor Benn. And the interviewer, whoever it was, I think it was IFL, he said something about Frank Smith, said something to Frank Smith about, what do you think about this theory that Conor Benn's being banned? And Frank Smith paused, and I watched him, and he swallowed. And I'm not building the conspiracy theory on a guy swallowing, but he swallowed, and his eyes kind of squinted. You know the body language of when someone swallows and their eyes squint and the focus, and it's like saying, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm going to pretend that I don't. And then he went off in his little speech. Now, even before I watched that interview with Frank Smith last night, or the night before, I said to you about a week ago, didn't I? I said, I think Benn's been banned.
Yeah.
I think they're going to announce that it's been a quiet ban. And before anybody says that you can publish the results of bans, and they have to go through VADA, the global body, they've got to publish fighters who have been banned. And if you look on VADA, for example, there's all a list of all the athletes who's been banned. And I had a look the other night, Conor Benn's not there. But they've been arguing the last 3 or 4 days, or the last week or two, should I say, Benn's new legal team about jurisdiction. And I think the argument is effectively that Benn, at the time of the positive test, hadn't renewed his license with the Boxing Board of Control. I assume before the fight with Eubank in October, they're just going to renew it a couple of days before. So they've not renewed the license. So effectively, he's not a licensed boxer. So I think the legal team have argued that you've no right to publish the findings of this report. Yeah. And if you are going to ban him, I think there's a chance, not 100% chance, I think there's a chance. They've already made a decision. They've already informed Matchroom and Benn of the decision.
That's why they're quiet, isn't it? Because they've been quiet for a year.
That's why they're quiet. That's why Eubank Jr. again has gone for Smith and not Benn. That's why Manny Pacquiao.
Carlo will know, and it'll all be top secret and all that, won't it?
Yeah, I think what's happened is and listen, if something comes out tomorrow, then I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. I think Benn's legal team, have slapped something on UCAD what says you cannot make this information public because you don't have jurisdiction over Conor Benn at that time. You were acting on behalf of the British Boxing Board of Control. He didn't have a license. You don't have jurisdiction. You can't publish the findings. Yep, you're free to, with your results, to say we won't permit him to box, but you cannot make these public. And if you look now at suspended boxers, and if you look at banned boxers, Conor Benn's name's not there on UCAD, on VADA. It's not there. I think there's a very good chance, and I said this to you a week and a half ago, he's been banned. Carlo would know that. Liam Smith.
Dragging on a lot, isn't it?
Dragging on. Nothing's happened. And when Frank Smith got asked a question last night and he swallowed and his brow came down, I started smiling and I thought, you know something we don't. Either you know he's going to get licensed, you know he's going to get banned, or you know he's already been banned. But what you do know is you know the outcome. You, Frank Smith, know the outcome, and his body language told me that. So I just think with the silence, with the fact that Eubank Jr. has gone for Smith, I think he's been banned.
No, they're not going to park their career up waiting for him, are they? If he's getting banned.
And UCAD won't have the deepest pockets in the world, mate. They're an anti-doping testing agency. They don't have deep pockets. And
all they do is do the test. They're not bothered about all the politics.
Exactly. They don't care about the politics.
They can't understand it, all the politics. You don't get this in athletics, do you?
Exactly, Russell. And that's what I'm saying, because they don't care if Conor Benn has an unlicensed fights abroad on whatever. All they care about is their test results are accurate. So as long as they can say, we've taken the findings of VADA, we've looked at the samples, we've done this, we've done that, we've looked at the reports, we conclude there are two positive test results. There's strict liability applies. They'll just do a silent ban that says, as far as we're concerned, that's the results of our tests. We've given them to the British Boxing Board of Control, but if you get something slapped on you that says you cannot publish those results, they might turn around and say, like you've just said it, Russell. They don't care. They've just done what they do when they test people. That's what they do.
Yeah, they're not bothered.
I think there's every chance that this result is already known. It's just how do you deal with the fallout? And I think every time I get asked about this, sometimes I think you'll get a soft ban. Sometimes when I'm on my weakest, I think boxing's so corrupt he's going to get away with it. But the last couple of times you and I have chatted, I don't think he's going to get away with it. I think strict liability is going to apply. And I think there's every chance he's already been banned, and that ban's been known for some time.
There.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll come out that they know as well?
I don't know about that because you don't know the conversations between Benn's legal team and UCAD. And if it gets messy, as I've said, if I'm UCAD and I'm the in charge of UCAD, I'll just say that's fine. It doesn't bother me. I won't publish the results because I don't want to end up in court. But what I won't move is I won't move away from what our findings are. But whether they're allowed to give those findings to the British Boxing Board of Control now, because he wasn't a licensed boxer at the time, I don't know. It's really messy. There are grey areas, but I'm Mr. Not Conspiracy Theory. But I'm repeating myself, I'm thinking he's been banned, mate. And I think Frank Smith, Eddie Hearn, Eubank Jr., of course, Conor Benn, Benn's legal team, I think they know he's been banned. And if it comes out this week that Conor Benn's been banned and they make it public, that doesn't mean to say that they've only just made a decision on Monday or Tuesday. They might have made that decision 4 weeks ago, but they're only just now going public with it, because I think they've been silenced. Have you noticed as well that the less buoyant now? How confident was Eddie 3-4 months ago Conor was fighting?
Confident.
He was confident.
Dates out every couple of weeks, isn't they? Giving us more dates, September, and
he'll be out. He'll definitely be out in June. He might be out as early as March. That's what it was saying at the beginning of the year. He might be out as early as March, and then all of a sudden it was Conor Benn's fighting. What did they say? This June the 3rd, June the 17th. Now Conor Benn's fighting in September. It's a little bit like the Usyk Fury fight. It's like, you talk about fighting in April. We haven't heard anything in January, February. So it's the same thing. We're now coming towards the end of July. How far away from the 23rd of September, they said Benn was fighting. How far away are we from now, 23rd of September? We might only be like 7 or 8 weeks away.
Yeah,
who's he fighting? Who's he fighting? Where's he fighting? When's he fighting? Nothing again, mate. Nothing again. It's all gone quiet. So this is the guy who was going to be fighting in March, June, September. Conor Benn's not fighting in September, mate. He ain't fighting.
No, he ain't, mate. It's not good, is
it? You're banned, Conor. You're banned, mate. You've been banned.
What do you think? 2 year?
2 year backdated from March. That's my view.
Well, he'll have ages to go then, won't he? And they'll appeal it to get to his last fight, won't they? Try and get it.
Yeah, if they should have started the process first of all, shouldn't they? They should have said, listen, these are the findings. There you go. And they've done it all wrong. They've had a massive amount of arrogance, and they thought they could get away with it. They thought that Matchroom and Conor was bigger than the sport of boxing and bigger than the regulating and anti-doping authorities. They found out they're not. They found out public opinion against them is massive. The media turned against them. The sport turned against them. And they had a bit of a rude awakening. They weren't as elitist as they first thought. And I also wonder as well, Russell, and I might be wrong on this one, but, you and I chat about everything. Conor Benn won't have unlimited funds. Conor Benn might have earned decent money, but I was looking at his earnings so far the last 2 or 3 years. He's not earned what people might think he's earned. And once you start, endorsements stop. You've had a drug ban, your endorsements stop. So what money Conor Benn's earned he lives a millionaire's lifestyle, doesn't he? We've all seen how he lives, what kind of cars he drives, how he dresses. Money's not unlimited. It doesn't last forever. And Nigel Benn's not someone who's still got multi-millions of pounds worth of
No, he has
cash.
not.
If he had that money, he wouldn't be doing these bloody after boxing things that they do for 5 grand, 3 grand, 2 grand, and doing that night after night. They don't just do it because they love it. They do it because it's an earner for them. Now, Conor Benn, I don't know, what do you think he would have spent so far on legal fees?
$500,000.
He's got to have done, hasn't he? He's got to have done massive amount, not just one person working for him. And now he's got a second team. So he's probably had now 8 or 9 months worth of legal bills.
Yeah, a lot of money.
You get to a point, don't you, where you say, hang on a minute.
And teams of people, scientists flying them in from all over.
Money doesn't last forever, does it? This legal battle will cost an absolute fortune. And they're just hemorrhaging money. And I don't think Matchroom will be funding this. I don't think anybody else will be funding this other than Conor Benn. I mean, you've heard Conor, every media thing he's done, the interviews he's done. When he went on the Piers Morgan, he was saying the same thing. I'm paying for this out of my own pocket. I'm paying for the best. Well, the best don't come cheap. And I would have said the same thing as you. Hundreds of thousands of pounds in legal bills this will have cost. Now, Conor Benn, I might be wrong. Someone will tell me I'm wrong. He might have earned 2 million, 3 million so far in career earnings. You know, he's only been at this kind of, these big fights have only been there for the last 3 or 4 or 5 fights. Yeah. I think he got 400 grand for Algeria or something. Promoter, manager, Sims, what's he taking? 25%? What's his coach taking? You know, anybody who knows boxers at this level, you pay for your sparring, you pay for your sparring partner's equipment, your accommodation. You have some big bills that come out of your salary. So if he's earned 400, let's say 500,000 for fighting Algeria, he might have taken 200 grand home. That sounds like a lot of money. It's not. It's not a lot of money how Conor Benn lives his life, the cars he drives. So he'll be tapping into money that he doesn't want to tap into now. He certainly have more cash than I will. But Conor Benn will be spending a lot of money. And then you start to think, at what point do I just say, all right, look, I can't continue to do this. I'm going to have to sit out my ban. And for the next, if he does get banned for 2 years, Russell, or 18 months left or whatever, he's got to live off something, hasn't he?
Yeah.
There's no income coming in. He's got no income coming in. That's why boxers end up broke. They're not the smartest people in the world, and they don't have the money that people think. You know, they're not all like you know, for every Ray Leonard and Larry Holmes who have just kept their massive fortunes. There's if Mike Tyson can go through $300 million, and Evander Holyfield can go through $350 million and be declared bankrupt, Conor Benn can go through 3-4 million like it's nothing.
Yeah, because everybody around you wants feeding, even lawyers. Now he's got them all like feeding off him, poor Conor, hasn't he? Bless him.
They all want feeding, and you've got like I might be wrong, but Tony Sims is in the gym with him every single day, smashing his hands and smashing his wrists and joints, taking the pads. Is he going to continue to do that for the next 18 months for nothing?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It's going to be interesting. Listen, if he genuinely has not known what he was taking, which I don't believe, by the way, he's still got to get banned, mate, because he's failed 2 tests, and unless someone's pinned him down, you're a professional athlete, you got to look what's going into your body. It's as simple as that. So he's got to have a ban.
You think he'll be a poster boy, Julian, moving forward to try and get his ban reduced, go around all schools and that grovelling?
It's what they do, isn't it, ultimately? But I guess it's like, you know, you can have as much defence as you want if you go in court, but ultimately, you know, you can have mitigating circumstances. But the law is very technical, isn't it? The sentences for certain crimes is very technical, and the bans that you know, the anti-doping authorities or the boxing licensing authorities hand out, the very, very technical processes. The only reason Canelo got his ban reduced was because it proved with hair follicles and receipts and everything else that there was potential mitigation. Whereas, you know, Tyson Fury, he had a 2-year ban, whatever people said. he retrospectively served that with his retirement. But Tyson Fury had his ban. Canelo Alvarez had his ban. Kid Galahad had his ban. All these fighters, big names, some not so big names, some massive names. You get a ban, you got to serve your bandmates. Dillian White got 2 years early on, didn't he? You get your ban, you got to serve your ban. It's as simple as that. And Conor Benn's no different to anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie's got a lot of dough invested in him, though, hasn't he?
He's got everything invested in him right now, hasn't he? I bet they get sick of being asked questions about him, though, don't they? But all we want is a resolution to this, don't we? That's all you want, and that's all I want.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Eddie does with him now, because if he becomes no good to him, what about Eddie saying he's like family?
And this is the thing, and this is the unjust we were talking about. As I'm talking to you now, I keep looking at Sean and Maxi, so kind of like blue collar guys. So I keep looking at Maxi, who was shafted last night. He's right in front of me. And then we're talking about Conor Benn, and as you said, the other end of the spectrum, we went from the last part one, we went from Tommy Fury, and now we're talking about Conor Benn. If boxing is just, Maxi Hughes would have got the decision last night, so we know it's not just, but we can't have people taking performance-enhancing drugs licensed. We can't have that in boxing, because ultimately that is if we start to ignore the findings of these scientists, and they are scientists, then where are we with boxing? Where are we with society, really, when we condone that? So he's got to get banned in the interest of the sport. And you know what? I know I'm talk about this one forever, but I can't stop thinking about Russell with this one as well. This leaves a bad taste in my mouth, is because Calla and Eddie and everybody else knew he'd failed the test, didn't they? They were still prepared to drag a man down to 157 pounds, a skeletal man, and put him in the ring with a guy with loaded gloves. And that's why I feel so strongly about Conor Benn serving a ban.
That's why they're hammering him.
They have to, because it was in all my years, like some of the most distasteful things I've seen in boxing. We see some pretty distasteful things, don't we, in boxing? Yeah. We saw, Billy Collins Jr., what, happened to him when the trainer took out the padding from his gloves, Panama Lewis, scumbags like that. And I'm not saying this is the same thing, but that effectively should have been manslaughter. That young man took his life afterwards. He never recovered from that beating that Luis Resto put on him long time ago on the David Morderan undercard, I believe, I think. And what we could have had, what would have happened, George, we've got George with his toy. What would have happened had that fight gone ahead? Okay. We've got George with his toy, mate. His timing's impeccable. What would have happened had Eubank Jr. got in the ring at 157 pounds? Absolutely shot to bits. His body shot to bits. And then Benn with, Benn loaded with who knows what. What had happened is something had happened to Eubank Jr.
Well, they'd have all had blood on their hands, wouldn't they?
Right.
And
that's why we have to come down on it, because it wasn't just the fact that he had the banned substances in his system. It was the fact that they were going to let that fight go ahead. Never mind what they were saying about the border control, all this rubbish. They were doing whatever they could in that 24-hour period to get that fight over the line, knowing Callie Sauerland's supposed to be the guy who looks after Eubank Jr., knowing what they knew, they were still going to try and do that fight. It's probably the most disgusting thing I've seen in the last 10, 15 years in boxing.
Yeah, it's left a bad taste, but they trampled all about fans as well.
Absolutely. I mean, all those people 20,000 people, it sold out, hadn't it? Undercard fighters, people flown in from wherever, all over the world. Massive interest in that fight. And it was disgusting. I mean, did people get compensated? I don't know. But again, I guess it's just we just want justice, don't we? It's not about, look, we've called out Conor Benn before on your program, some of his behaviour, but this is not about like just hating on Conor Benn. This is about justice, and this is about trying to have a fair sport, and we can't reward drug cheats with multi-million-pound fight deals. We can't reward them. It has to have a ban. It has to serve a ban, and everybody has to be seen that ban is served. And if he comes back a changed man, a clean fighter, then we'll give him a second chance, won't we? But Eubank Jr. might not get Eubank Jr. might not got a second chance had he taken that fight.
Yeah, how do you see that fight going with Beefy and Eubank Jr.?
You got to go with Beefy, haven't you? You got to
seasoned, isn't he, and durable.
He's seasons. He's tough. He's technically very, very good.
Like an 8 across board, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And Eubank Jr., I always get his fights wrong every single time, but there's just something about this awful impression that Roy Jones Jr. has left on his style. I just don't know where to look. I don't know what he's doing with this Roy Jones kind of like, a high backhand and touch, peppering, no defense up close, no mid-range defense. And I also think there's something about, I don't ever think Eubank Jr., I remember talking to you about this last August or July when the Benn and Eubank Jr. fight was announced at 157. I said to you right then, before we knew about the drug ban, I said, this fight should never happen. A man who hasn't been 157 pounds since he was 17-year-old, the burning and losing tissue and muscle tissue and muscle mass, he'll never be the same again. I said to you, Eubank Jr. will never be the same again. And I thought the shot that Liam Smith hit him with was nothing special. He just looked like a skeletal fighter in the ring against Liam Smith. It didn't look right. It looked like he'd probably put on about 4 or 5 pound maximum. And I don't think he'll ever be the same again. And if it's 160 pound again, it's not going to happen, mate. It's going to get knocked out again.
Yeah, he just looked very weak, didn't he?
Well, we saw it with Roy Jones Jr., didn't we? When he moved up to fight John Ruiz at heavyweight, and then he boiled back down to fight Tava, and he was never the same again, wasn't Roy Jones Jr.? He absolutely went, didn't he? His punch resistance went, he went. His reflexes went. And I think Eubank Jr. has never been at that level. But the irony that Roy Jones Jr. is the fighter training Eubank Jr. And like I say, you've had a guy who wasn't the biggest super middleweight in the world, but he always looked comfortable at 168, didn't he? Eubank Jr. And then there was something not convincing about him at 160 pound. And then to go to 157, it absolutely destroys him. You go up in weight as you get older. You don't go down in weight. It doesn't happen. And you get your muscles get denser, your skeleton gets denser, your pelvic gets slightly denser as you get older into your early to mid 30s. And you're supposed to go up in weight, not down. Your metabolism slows down. And I think it massively damaged him doing 157. And I think Smith will knock him out again. He'll knock him out.
Yeah. Warrington Wood. How do you see it going?
It's an interesting fight. Statistically, Josh he's only won 1 fight and he's lost 4. That's a statement of fact. So he's clearly not, his best days are not behind him. But he comes with a lot of pressure. He's still a physically strong fighter. Again, this is 2 fighters who have been career featherweights. Again, boiling down to featherweight. We've seen how they both look really kind of, talking about the weight drop again, they both look skeletal, haven't they, at 9 stone in the last 2 or 3 fights. I do think that Lee Wood's last fight flattered to deceive. I thought Lara was absolutely shocking. He did the weight wrong. He clearly wasn't the same fighter he was in the first fight. Why am I saying that? Because I still think Lee Wood's quite beatable. And I'm talking to a lot of people who are saying they think Lee Wood automatically wins that fight. And I don't think that's the case. I think styles make fights. Lopez, I thought, was all wrong for Josh. Lara was all wrong for Josh. But Lee Wood might have been all wrong for Lara in the last fight. How do I see it going? Might surprise a few people. It wouldn't surprise me if Warrington was just a little bit too busy for him and won a close decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't shock me, wouldn't that result at all.
You say Warrington's got more in the tank, wouldn't you?
I just think he's so physically strong. Is Josh? He's such a handful, and he's got a load of that, hasn't he? He's got a load of that. He's got a great chin. Lee Wood's a good puncher, but I don't think he hits hard enough to knock Josh out. I thought the punches that Lara did him with were just, he must have hit him 1,000 times before he knocked him out. It was brutal, actually. But Josh generally does have a really solid chin. Lee Wood now, he must be pushing 36, mate. Josh is no spring chicken, but Lee Wood's got to be pushing 36. And I don't know. I think Josh might be in. That'd make him a 3-time world champion, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Impressive.
Interesting, won't it?
Yeah, it'd be a good fight. It'd be an exciting fight. I think the good thing with that one is they've both got a lot of respect for each other, haven't they?
Yeah.
I don't think it'll get silly in the build-up. I think because there's respect there between the teams and the fighters, I think it'll be an amicable fight that'll sell itself just based on two really good fighters. And I don't know. I'll probably have to break it down a little bit closer to the fight, but as I'm saying, I'm leaning towards Josh being a little bit too busy. Josh is quite tricky to hit, actually. He's deceptive. He might not have looked it against Lara and Lopez, but he comes in quite low. You know, his defense is kind of unusual. How he holds that left hand up there. So he'll be blocking anything from the right side from Wood. And the thing is Lee Wood's really good if you give him space and give him time. But if you don't give him that space and don't give him that time, he's not so good. And I don't think Josh will give him that whatsoever. I think it'll be messy. It'll be physical. It'll be an awkward fight. But I think Josh might just have a bit too much of an engine for him. It's a tentative prediction, is that one?
Well, it's a good night for British boxing when they fight, isn't it? For what we've had lately.
Because this is what we want. We want 50-50 fights, don't we? We want good lads, competitive lads, working class lads who do the talking in the ring. We just want to see these decent fights, don't we? And that's all we're interested in, because we're not getting this at heavyweight, so we have to look elsewhere in boxing for these competitive fights.
Yeah. So good luck to Josh Warrington. Right then.
Good luck to Josh. Good luck to Lee Wood. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Julian, having you on. Have a great
as always, mate.
And we'll speak again.
You take care, buddy. We'll speak soon.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you, everybody.